And that was in March of 2009. And it was the New Hampshire governor's 2009 CAP document. But there's a big problem with that CAP document, that the scientific basis for the CAP document is based on the UN 2007 IPCC climate change document about how global warming is going to kill us all. Well, later on in 2009, it was revealed that some scientists fudged their numbers and that they ignored significant data that refuted their findings. So in New Hampshire, we're using a document that has known flaws with known flaws in the scientific documents, but New Hampshire and the Granite State Future has decided to continue, even though they know that document has flaws, even though they know that the science behind it. There's another woman that's mentioned, is in the reference material. She was called into question, and the Washington Post last year had an editorial about her questionable scientific data, and it said in there that she might not have falsified her data, she just kind of fudged it. So we have a situation where we're using a document that really does not have any valid scientific basis, yet we're taking that document and implementing greenhouse gas taxes and all kinds of taxes. Now, one thing I want to point out is this whole program is based on the New Hampshire livability principles. Among them are efficient land use, which is restrictions on your land, compact design principles, mixed use, and mixed use is retail on the bottom, and on the top is residential, conserve working landscape, and that means restricting large areas of land in the rural areas. There's all kinds of things in your housing choices, including affordable housing options integrated throughout the whole community. So affordable housing in every zip code, in every area of every zip code. So there's all kinds of things. One thing, if you get a copy of the New Hampshire Livability Principles, think when you read this, New Hampshire Livability Principles versus Principles of Liberty. These are not principles of liberty. These are restricting individuals' right to own property and do with it reasonable use on their property. It's taking away the rights of people to use their land. I've heard horror stories where people have been on land for generations, and all of a sudden, due to all these regulations that are coming in, they can no longer use their property as the family had been using it for generations. So that's what you have to think about. The New Hampshire Livability Principles, when you read these, look at them carefully. A lot of these principles are in direct contrast to the principles of liberty and land rights. So,
this is kind of Orwellian, isn't it?
I guess. Oh, I'm sorry.
You're talking about water.
Oh, there's a Water Sustainability Commission. The governor, do you want to tell the whole story? Okay. Water Sustainability Commission.
Yes, it's important because they talk about consensus, and it's
They talk about consensus, and one of the partners is NH Listens. And it's out of the Carsey Institute out of UNH. And the Carsey Institute was founded by the producer of Roseanne TV show. She's an alumnus of UNH. So Carsey Institute, a woman named Carsey, producer of Roseanne, donated $7 or $8 million to UNH to start the Carsey Institute. And part of their program is NH Listens. And they have listening sessions for different issues. Well, last April, the governor started a Water Sustainability Commission. And reading the documents associated with the Water Sustainability Commission, they actually say in their second meeting, we know what we need to do, we just have to find a way to do it. And they talk about seeing water as the collective, seeing water in the collective. And they talk about the problem of individual water rights. And they brought in a woman from Connecticut, and she talked about the collective. They also brought in a law firm to talk about New Hampshire riparian rights, the right for us to use our water on our property. And what they were talking about is how do we get around it. So they had these public listening sessions. On May 8th, they had them in 5 different areas of the state. And it was advertised not very well. I found it on the internet by accident because I was dealing with the Windham sustainability, and I was doing Google searches on sustainability. So I found it by accident. And it talked about a public listening session on water sustainability. I said, well, I think, I'm thinking about sustainability, I'm going to go to that. Well, I got there, there was supposedly 40 people from the public there. I was probably the only person from the general public there. There were water lobbyists and stakeholders everywhere in that room. Everybody knew each other. So the public meeting, well, they called it a public listening session. And as I'm sitting there in little circles, they didn't do town meeting format, they did little circles. No. What?
Delphi.
Well, see, I was a poli-sci major. They call that a Soviet. Because that's how the Soviet Union ran their government, in little listening circles. And what they do is they've decided what they want to do and make everybody agree to it. So, and somebody told me later on it was called the Delphi, which was, it was started by the Rand Corporation or something, but I've known it as a Soviet. So they put me in a Soviet, and a guy came in, and he's the environmental reporter for National Public Radio in New Hampshire, and they said, you can't stay here if you want to report. If you want to stay here as a citizen, you can stay here, but this is not a public meeting. And you need to shut your equipment down if you want to stay. And the guy said, fine. And he sat down next to me. And I said, wait a minute, this is a public meeting. He has a report, you know. And they said, oh no, you had to register. This is a private meeting. So the governor's so-called public meeting session was turned into a private meeting the second somebody tried to report on it. The rest of the night I was subjected to, they had something already printed out of what we wanted to do with our water, and I kept on saying, look, New Hampshire is the live free or die state. Live free or die, the #1 thing that makes us live is water. You can't take away our water rights. I said, our Constitution doesn't just say life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness. It says life, liberty, and the pursuit and acquisition of property, in a word, I think it says, and in a manner, happiness. Well, they didn't want to hear that, so they were writing on a chalk, little board, all our stuff, and about water rights, blah blah blah. At the end of the night, the woman rips off the thing, puts it to the side. She writes her own stuff and tells me that's our report. Another section, they were having a lively discussion. They took all their stuff off the wall and put the papers away, and then somebody stood up and gave the report. One guy was so upset he walked out. So at the end of it, I said, look, I said, you're having a stakeholders meeting and there's no real public here. I said, why didn't you tell the stakeholders that they couldn't be here? Because they're all stakeholders and not members of the general public. They said, well, they're also New Hampshire residents, so they're public too. So they basically are giving stakeholders 2 votes, because they're going to get the public report and then they're going to get the stakeholders report. So I will tell you that when the Water Sustainability Commission report comes out at the end of the summer, question everything that's in there, because there were no public meetings.
And it was not a consensus.
And it was not a consensus. They never took a vote. And when they didn't like what you were telling them, they changed the answers. So, and I thought it was a
Are they looking to privatize the water rights?
What they're looking to do is collectivize them.
Manage it.
Yeah, manage and regulate.
That's kind of privatizing and having one management company oversee the whole water rights.
It's the government. And actually in the Granite State Future application, they say there's a problem in New Hampshire that only 64% of the people in New Hampshire have public water systems. And they saw that as a problem, that they want more water infrastructure.
So they can control it.
Yeah, they want to control the water. And it's very concerning, because we had a farmer there and he was very concerned because his water was already being regulated. The withdrawal rates out of the river that he was there. But I'll tell you, the general public that was around me, I had the guy from NPR, I had a water lobbyist, I had 2 planners, a professor from the Carsey Institute, which I think they sent him over because before the meeting started, I was there early and I could hear the facilitator saying, if anybody gives you trouble, just give me the eye signal, I'll send somebody over to help you. And sure enough, I think they realized I was going to be some difficult, cause some difficulty. So there were no people in the general public in that meeting that I could see. So.
One more thing to tie this together with the regional planning commissions is the person who runs the Rockingham Regional Planning Commission was a senior member
Of the Water Commission.
at that meeting.
Right. And one of the guys, the president of the Water Commission, received a large federal grant for a startup through the Energy Department, the cylinder loan program. His organization got one of the cylinder loan programs. And one of the things they're going to talk about is, one of the things I'm seeing in the documents, and I'm not absolutely sure what the actual thing will say, but there's going to be more restrictions on impervious asphalt laying around the state. And this guy happens to have a solar pervious paver that his startup makes. So,
Chrome capitalism.
I can't say that for sure, but they talk about, when they don't tell you straight out what they're going to do, but it looks like what they're going to talk about is that asphalt is bad and you need to put pervious surfaces.
Well, if there's no cars, it won't really matter, right?
Yeah.
That's right.
So,
Go back to dirt roads and horse and buggy.
yeah, so do you have any question? Oh.
Tell them what they're doing in California.
Oh, in California, we saw a lecture in California. There's a county that had over
1,384 miles.
Yeah, 1,384 miles, and they've made the decision to tear up all but 162 miles, 170 miles of it.
Which county was that?
I forget what county, but what they're talking about is not just...
You're making a roadie to cry.
Yeah.
No, I just think there's a lot of work.
Right. That what they're talking about is that people really shouldn't live in the rural areas. So it belongs to the animals, and actually, we went, yeah.
Have either one of you folks heard of the Portland project?
No.
They're doing this in Portland. It was
Oh,
a
yes.
pilot for this whole thing, and it started in 2003.
Mm-hmm.
They tried this in Portland, Oregon.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah,
Google-
it's
Google
different,
it.
a lot of...
Oh, yeah. It's a town that's now, I think we saw that.
It's hemmed in, and you should be able to get
They're
exactly where
starving.
this is gonna go based on what they've done.
They're starving, right?
Pardon me?
They're starving, all the businesses left.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did you want to address us still?
Still like to contribute.
Yeah,
Contribute?
go right ahead.
Grok